can't always be confined in this little box of mine, even though it's so comfortable in that box. It's so comfortable, but understanding that I have this powerful voice that, I was given, and I can't let this voice just be contained to this one soul. I have to somehow figure a way to channel that, if it's to my music, my poetry, my designing, my art, my ministry. And a lot of it came through college, playing soccer, being a part of so many various different groups, and all of my friends just being like, man, you're talented. Why aren't you putting this on, YouTube, or this and this and this, and making podcasts? And I was like, it's not my MO, but the moment I started doing it and the traction it got just helped me to realize that there's more out there for it. I just got to be the one to go get it.
Wow. Well, I think you've done that and then some. It's an awesome transition. I think it could be inspiring to kids that maybe, are sitting in their ninth grade class right now, or they're sitting at home right now in quarantine and say to themselves, I have this space right now, and how do I work in it? How do I make it mine? And then from there, is it possible for me to then spread my experience to others? So I think you're a great role model for how students can work to do that. Let's talk about your experience in working with kids, because obviously, I know you and I have discussed this over and over, and my students can attest to this. Kids are tough
yes, they are.
with, and adults are tough to work with too. So it's kind of like a process of headbutting that goes on.
Well, funny enough, it's actually amazing that since being in Knoxville, I've done both. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. I've done my ministry there. I've worked with Yoke. I've worked with several organizations that just partnered from kids all the way from elementary school to high school. I've worked with kids in college as far as mentoring, teaching, and then currently now I work at a homeless shelter. So from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. I would be with my kids at Boys and Girls Club, and then from 6 p.m. to midnight I'll be with my homeless shelter. So I would just kind of always got that double-edged sword and that amazingness of just seeing what it's like. But for working with kids, what I've realized, and you can probably also attribute to this too, is yes, kids are difficult, but they're the future. They're the future of this nation, they're the future of this country, and a lot of the kids now, like I'm picturing myself back in ninth grade, or back in eighth grade, writing that letter in your class, to myself, that I would read in ninth grade, and just realizing that letter, which I think I probably still have somewhere in my mom's, I don't know where, and just realizing that letter would speak so much more volume now. Working with kids has been an amazing journey for me, in the sense of it's taught me humility, it's taught me humbleness, it's taught me understanding that it's better to listen, even though sometimes it might be 20 minutes of a conversation of dead silence. Dead silence, but you're listening, which some people might think that's weird, that how do you have a conversation where nothing is being said, but you're just listening? And for me, I take that, and I'm going to switch it over to my song for a quick second. The first line in my song they say the eyes are the key to the sight, the bridge to the light that travels at high speed, the color of the sound our mind chooses to see. What's your focus? What do you stare and think about? What's more important to you? How do you see the value when you don't see the value? How do you see the shade when you're stuck on the fake views, blinded by the tint and the real hue? What's your focus? You take a look closer, but you never seem to find the center. You read between the lines, see past the picture, and you can see the vibe. That's like the first stanza and the first verse of my song. Now, when you break that down, the eyes are the first thing that you always draw your attention to when you look at somebody. And from there, I'm looking at this person, I'm looking at this child, I'm looking at this homeless person, and they're not saying a word. But when I tell you, I'm able to just see and understand what this person is going through, what this person is trying to say, to the point that when they start speaking, I already know what's going to happen.
Wow, that's powerful, and I get it. I mean, that communication, those eyes, being able to see someone, being able to connect with someone, being able to sort of, penetrate each other's souls with what's going on, and not even having to say anything, but just knowing, having that mental telepathy can really be powerful. I'm with you on that. And I think a lot of that comes from what you talked about, being a good listener and being an active listener. And you don't have to be silent to be an active listener. And I think something that you've definitely mastered is the ability to take it all in, process, and then deliver accordingly. I think we live in such a reactionary society where people are expected to have a reaction to everything, and it has to be an immediate reaction. And if there's anything that this current quarantine time might offer us as we scrape for positives, is that opportunity to become a stronger active listener and then be able to read people better as a result.
Yeah, I feel as though what I've learned in this quarantine is being able to be still while moving. And I don't know if it was, I forgot what Maya Angelou said. It was a quote that I wanted to bring up, but I can't remember the quote right now. But it was along the lines of, you understand more when you're moving physically, but your body is still able to be still and silent. And I feel as though with this whole, pandemic going around, and my heart goes out to all of the families that have been affected, whereas the family members have died to it or lost their jobs or anything, my heart goes out to them. But for me, when I was home quarantined for 3 weeks because I was sick, and, by the grace of God, I wasn't able to, get the virus and everything, but just understanding that level of being in a space where you don't know what's expected next, but understanding that you can change what's going to happen. Whether that's by just taking this time to just realize you have so much in you, and this is the time now to see what that little window is, because there's one thing in life that you'll never get back, and that's time. That's the biggest. That's one of the biggest things that you told me, Mr. McAdams told me. Like, one thing I learned from the both of you is you will never get back the time that you have now. So utilize this time to just find what drives you, find what makes you happy, find what brings you joy, find what brings you peace, and what kind of the whole conversation we're talking about, find your focus. What can you do now, being as a freshman in high school, 8th grader in middle school, that transitional period, or a senior about to go to college, a senior about to graduate college? I know with this whole pandemic, the tail end of the semester was kind of just shut out the window, and everything went to Zoom or went to parents not having to become teachers, brothers and sisters not having to become teachers. Whereas some of this, none of us wanted to do this, but it was that call we had to make. And for me, being an essential worker, I had to step up even further for that call of realizing, okay, I have all this time now. What do I do with it? And for me, it's just been my poetry. It's been my ministry. It's been trying to be an active engager while also trying to be still in my own life.